what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I have a good one for you, because today's video we are reviewing the original super shoe, or at least the latest iteration of the original super shoe. Guys, this is the Nike VAPORFLY 4. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I do just want to say thank you to Nike. They were good enough to send me this pair of the VAPORFLY 4 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. That said, you're going to be able to pick up a pair of the new Nike VAPORFLY 4 for $260. And of course, I'll place a link in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. Now, $260, yes, it is very expensive, but it's also right in line with right where super shoes are priced. Now, Nike has made some big changes this year with the VAPORFLY 4. Now, as someone that has run in every iteration of the VAPORFLY from the OG back in 2017, I can tell you that the VAPORFLY 4 does not feel like any other VAPORFLY before it, and it is the lightest VAPORFLY yet. Now, there is also a pretty good reason why this is the lightest VAPORFLY yet, and that's because Nike has bucked tradition. They didn't just go with the max stack just because they could. They dropped it down 5mm and lowered the drop. So the VAPORFLY 4 now has 35 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. I suppose the VAPORFLY 4 is just a product of everything it's made from. It's not just that lower stack of foam, but still, it is light, and Nike claims that in a US men's size 10, the VAPORFLY 4 will tip the scale at 6.7 ounces or 190 grams. That is insanely light. Of course, in my size, it's a little bigger, so it's going to weigh a little more. But in my size, a US men's size 13, VAPORFLY 4 still only tips the scale at 7.7 ounces or 218 grams. My friends, this is incredibly light on my foot. And of course, because it's lighter, it's faster. Or at least it feels faster. I shouldn't say that just yet. It feels fast. Now, the VAPORFLY 4 does fit true to size. I wear the same size in all other Nike shoes as I wear in the VAPORFLY 4. However, this really doesn't need explaining, but I'll tell you anyway. The VAPORFLY 4 is a race day shoe, so it fits like a race day shoe, and race day shoes are just a little tighter. With that said, I didn't really notice any pressure on my forefoot here. Now, I don't want to say I had plenty of room, but I had enough room. The shoe was very comfortable. Now, typically I think I have narrower feet than most people. I will say that the VAPORFLY 4 will fit people with feet a little wider than mine. Seems like I had some room to tighten this down, so take that for what it's worth. I don't think this is a wide foot friendly shoe. I think typically Nike is not very wide foot friendly, but I didn't run into any issues with the sizing or the fit with the VAPORFLY 4. Okay, so if you are thinking of picking up a pair of the VAPORFLY 4, you're probably looking at some of the competition, right? But for me, I'd probably start my shopping by looking at the Craft Shoepay Pro. Now, the Shoepay Pro has 40/32. That's the same as the VAPORFLY 3. So an 8mm drop, it'll cost you $300. So the Shoepay Pro costs $40 more than the VAPORFLY 4. My size tips the scale at 262 grams. So the VAPORFLY 4 is 43 grams less than the Shoepay Pro. Next up, I think we should probably look at the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Paris. Now, I know we are going to be seeing the Metaspeed Edge and Sky Tokyo, and I don't know if they are a little lighter, they probably are, but this is all I had on hand right now. Now, the Metaspeed Edge Paris has 39.5 in the heel, 34.5 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. It'll cost $250, so it's $10 less than the VAPORFLY 4, and in my size, tips the scale at 225 grams. Now, until I got my hands on a pair of the VAPORFLY 4, the Metaspeed Edge Paris was my lightest shoe, and now the VAPORFLY 4 is 7 grams less than the Metaspeed Edge Paris. Pretty good. Okay, next up, I think we should probably compare the VAPORFLY 4 to the Adidas Adios Pro 4. Now, the Adios Pro 4 has 39 in the heel, 33 in the forefoot. For a 6mm drop, it'll cost you $250, and in my size, weighs in at 233 grams. So it weighs only 15 grams more than the VAPORFLY 4. Pretty close. I mean, not as close as the Metaspeed Edge Paris, but not too far off. And finally, I think we should also compare the VAPORFLY 4 with the VAPORFLY 3. Now, the VAPORFLY 3 has 40/32 for an 8mm drop. Now, I guess the full retail price is still $260, but it is on sale in a lot of places, and in my size, it tips the scale at 235 grams. So from year to year, the VAPORFLY 4 now weighs in 17 grams less than last year's VAPORFLY 3. That isn't that much, but it also is. Now, we're going to come back and also compare these two shoes in just a second. But for now, let's start at the top and work our way down. And yeah, as you can already see, it is a race day shoe. We have a very thin heel collar. There's basically no padding around this heel collar, except a little half moon area of padding right on the back. It's got that bolster padding. And historically, and in this version, I found this bolster padding to work very well for me. In fact, Generally speaking, Nike shoes do fit my feet very well, and I didn't run into any problems with the fit of the VAPORFLY 4. The upper is a very breathable engineered mesh upper. In fact, as I have the light shining on me because of the camera, I can see right inside the shoe, and that's a good indication of breathability. The VAPORFLY 4 does have a nice rigid heel counter, which I like. I know a lot of race day shoes tend to be very floppy in the back, perhaps to save a little weight, but I think maybe the VAPORFLY 4 has saved enough weight, so we get to keep that heel counter. And maybe because of that, I didn't have any heel slip in the VAPORFLY 4. Now you might notice the lacing on the VAPORFLY 4 runs right down the center of your foot. If I hold up this old VAPORFLY 3, you can see it's off center. Because I didn't really notice a difference with the laces lacing down the top of my foot as opposed to the side, but I'm sure Nike did their testing and found out that whatever you were gaining by having those off-centered laces wasn't really worth it, because they've gone back to traditional centered laces. As far as overlays and underlays go, yeah, we've got some underlays coming around the heel counter just to give that a little bit of structure. Obviously you want that when you put your foot in, you want it to hold its shape. We have an underlay coming around the toe bumper, again just to keep that upper off your foot. We have some reinforcement coming along the eyelet chain, and then that is pretty much it. So we've got the big swoosh on the lateral side, smaller swoosh on the medial side, and those are both sublimated, so they don't weigh anything. Oh, we do have a little heel pull on the back, and if I hold that up, you can see it says 04. You know, I don't think I actually use this at all to pull the shoe on my foot, but it's there if you need it. It's like a little extra helping hand. Now, overall, the VAPORFLY 4 is much more streamlined than the VAPORFLY 3. Like, as I said, it's not just lighter because they've lowered the stack height and they're using less zoom X. Everything is just a little more refined with the VAPORFLY 4, and that includes the tongue. Now, the tongue has shrunk. It does its job, which tells me we didn't need all that extra tongue. And this is actually one of my favorite tongues of all running shoes, because it gives you just enough padding to prevent any lace bite when you tie the laces across those top eyelets. But it really doesn't stick out at all. Look, I'm trying to pull this up right now. Yeah, it doesn't really stick out at all. Now, the tongue on the VAPORFLY 4 is not gusseted. We do have a lace loop here on the front, and as we would expect, I didn't experience any tongue migration. In fact, because the tongue has shrunk, it doesn't really wrap around your foot as much. So when I put my foot in, I never ran into kind of the sides of the tongue kind of rolling under and like doubling up on top of my foot. That can lead to hot spots. I didn't experience that in this shoe. The sock liner is glued in. It's nice and aerated, again making a nice breathable shoe. And now we come down to the midsole. Of course, Nike is using their Zoom X foam. We have a nice big slab of it, of course not as big as in the VAPORFLY 3, but there's enough there to do the job. Now, just like every other version of the VAPORFLY, we do have a carbon fiber fly plate sandwiched in between that Zoom X foam, except this time the carbon fiber fly plate is more aggressively angled. And this is not going to come across on camera, but I'm going to show you anyway, because you can see the fly plate right in here. You can see how, by looking at the bottom, you can see how it kind of scoops low here in the forefoot and then comes up high in the heel. So we've got more Zoom X foam underneath the plate in the heel and more Zoom X foam above the plate here in the forefoot. Now let me just reach down and look at the VAPORFLY 3. Now we don't have as big a cutout here on the VAPORFLY 3, but you can kind of see the angle. And again, this is not going to come across well on camera, but just by looking at the two windows and the angle of the fly plate, I think I can tell a difference. I think I can see that the angle is just a little bigger on the VAPORFLY 4 than it is on the VAPORFLY 3. So take that for what it's worth. Personally, I do like a nice scooped carbon fiber plate. That is probably because I am a heel striker, so I want that soft landing, and then I want to roll through and have the plate kind of pick me up as I roll through my forefoot and then send me off in the right direction. Hopefully nice and fast. Now we'll take a quick look at the outsole rubber on the bottom of the shoe. Yeah, we got full coverage of outsole rubber here, at least up here on the forefoot. And up on my forefoot, it seems to be holding up pretty well. Now, we do have two pieces of rubber right here on the heel, and as is normal for me, I land on my lateral heel edge, and I am seeing the rubber is wearing down quite a bit here. I'm also seeing a bit of wear right here on this exposed midsole foam in the middle, but that's okay. Like, that's not going to make any difference as far as performance goes. Like, I don't like looking at it. I don't like that the Zoom X is getting kind of messed up, but that's kind of what Zoom X does. It's a very soft, very responsive foam. And I've already got all this creasing along the side, which is also completely normal and makes no difference to responsiveness. So, let's talk about ride, because I said in the beginning that this is a completely different VAPORFLY than all other VAPORFLYs that came before it, and that isn't just because it's the lightest, it's because it rides differently. And if you've watched any of my other videos where I've reviewed super shoes, I am going to say the same thing, and you've heard this from every other reviewer, and that's mainly because it's true, and that is that the VAPORFLY 4 feels better when you're running fast. And that has become more pronounced in the VAPORFLY 4 than it was in the VAPORFLY 3 or any other of the VAPORFLYs. In fact, I think the VAPORFLYs typically have been a very gracious super shoe. Like, I think they have worked for a lot of people. And at least in my opinion, I think that has ended with the VAPORFLY 4 because it's a lot more aggressive. It doesn't work as well at slower paces, and I think at least the VAPORFLY 3 did. That isn't going to matter to a lot of people because you will only be using this for running fast. In fact, I was testing this in my lead up to the Boston Marathon, and I put a lot of miles, and all of my miles were either at race pace or at interval pace, so faster than race pace. Now, when I go out for these runs, I do usually warm up for a mile and then cool down for a little bit after I'm done with the intervals or done with the tempo session, and those miles did not feel good. Like, it didn't feel easy to run in these shoes. But that's okay, that's not really a dig on the VAPORFLY 4. Point is that when you start running fast, this shoe really comes alive. Now, I will also point out, at least from my perspective, and just remember, when you're looking at reviewers reviewing running shoes, you have to take everything that we say with a pinch of salt. And that's because I can only give you my opinion. I can only tell you how the shoe feels for me. And while the VAPORFLY 4 does feel very fast, the Zoom X foam feels just slightly firmer to me. Now, I'm not sure if this is a product of the Zoom X foam itself, or that there is just less Zoom X here in the bottom, giving me less cushioning, maybe. Now, I have heard a lot of talk that the VAPORFLY 4 is only good for the half marathon, and I don't think that's true. Well, it's going to be true for some people. Me, I would happily run a marathon in the VAPORFLY 4. In fact, I took this shoe to Boston thinking that I was going to run in it. And the only reason that I didn't run in the VAPORFLY 4 is because I got an offer to run in another shoe that I hadn't run in, and that shoe was older, so I wanted to run in that first. But I was ready to run a marathon in the VAPORFLY 4, and I know it would have been fantastic. But just to summarize, the VAPORFLY 4 feels much different than the VAPORFLY 3. I don't necessarily think for me that it's faster than the VAPORFLY 3, but it does feel more awkward at slower paces. It also feels slightly firmer. So if you like that, if you like a firm, snappy feel, then maybe the VAPORFLY 4 is going to be for you. Oh, one more thing, and that is stability. And stability is usually an issue in super shoes, right? Usually we are dealing with a big fat stack of foam, and we're kind of like a baby giraffe, you know? We're just not always sure on our feet. That is enhanced in the VAPORFLY 4. And when I hold this up, you can see this part right here. Do you see how narrow that is? That is extremely narrow. I don't have another shoe that is as narrow as this is in the midfoot. I mean, even the heel is just super narrow. In fact, if I hold up probably my next narrowest shoe, the VAPORFLY 3, and you can just see there is a big difference. The VAPORFLY 3 right here is just quite a bit wider in the midfoot and the heel, and this is not a stable shoe. So just that's something to keep an eye on when you are looking to buy a shoe. Just know that the VAPORFLY 4, it's like a drag racer. This thing is epic in a straight line. It will get up and it will go fast. But just be careful coming around corners. With that said, because Nike has lowered that stack height by 5mm in the heel, it didn't actually seem more unstable than the VAPORFLY 3. So maybe they are cancelling each other out. I don't know. But now I want to hear from you. Are you thinking of picking up a pair of the Nike VAPORFLY 4? What do you think about the lower weight and the narrower heel and the lower drop? Drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of Nike's VAPORFLY 4. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.